Well, the Denver Nuggets continue to enjoy the offseason. Nikola Jokic, there is an interesting storyline that is developing that I think is both rooted in some disappointment with the shot making and the turnovers with Jokic. But all in all, I think Jokic is being vastly underrated for just how good he was this playoff. We're going to talk about, I think, how he played overall. Also, some of the things that I think that the team needs to do around him to give him more space and more ability to do his thing next year. But also, the Denver Nuggets, they're banking on internal development. So, what does development look like from their young guys? How do they continue to get more out of them? How does Adelman and the new coaching staff, when they get here, continue to step into those roles? And Christian Braun has a contract extension up that he's available for, and so is Peyton Watson. What should those contract extensions look like? We're going to look around the league and point out some of the players in similar price ranges, and that way we can get a direction of where exactly the Denver Nuggets are going. Y'all, this is Swiper, Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. This is your host, Swiper. This is your team every day. I am so glad to be here with you all. Haven't seen you since last week. We're in the midst of the Cancun portion of this NBA season. The Denver Nuggets, after losing in 7 to the OKC Thunder. OKC since then has gone on to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 4-1. The NBA Finals starts tomorrow evening, Thursday evening, and I think this hopefully will be a very good series. Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers versus SGA, the MVP, and the OKC Thunder. This is going to be a clash of styles. The defensively anchored elite basketball team, all-time great team of OKC, plus playing the offensive centered and really also a good defensive unit for the most part, Indiana Pacers team. These have been the two best teams in the conference since January 1st, and I do think that if you're an NBA fan and you're a fan of the game beyond those two teams, you should enjoy this finals. I think you're going to see a lot of great clashes of style. There's going to be different types of player that are going to be different things, a lot of role players stepping into some key situations. It's going to be a lot of fun. But y'all, I'm so glad to be here with you today, man. I really appreciate everybody that continues to show love each and every day here on Locked On Nuggets. So as y'all can imagine, these last 3 weeks have been mighty interesting. And as we've been discussing the Nuggets and just what exactly they need to continue to do to improve their perspectives. And we've talked a lot this year about Nikola Jokic, and I think he had the greatest offensive season of all time. I think one of the best individual seasons that we've ever seen. Jokic this year, 30, 13, and 10. He shot 63% from 2, 42% from 3, 80% from the free throw line. Basically led the NBA and everything, was top 3 in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. Just an all-time great season. And Jokic did not win the MVP this year because SGA, 32, 5, and 6, 68-win team, just incredible plus-minus difference this year, incredible scoring, also a plus defender. Jokic had his best comp, I think, ever for an MVP award, and he didn't win it. Even though I thought he should have won, I thought he was the most impressive and valuable player in the NBA season. But then the playoffs start. And in these playoffs, Nikola Jokic, if you just look at the baseline for what he did, 26.2 points per game, 12.7 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. Now, he averaged 3.9 turnovers, so a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio for Jokic is quite high. This is not normally the kind of production you're going to get from him as a passer playmaker. But again, the Clippers defense did a terrific job. The OKC defense did a terrific job. Jokic shot 49, 38, 77 splits, and the three-point shot really dropped in the OKC series due to a stretch of games that he had between games 2 through 2 through 6. He was 0 in games, 3 and 4. Jokic was actually 2 of 18 over that stretch. So that dropped his 3-point percentage over the course of the playoffs. But man, this was just a very interesting year, I think, for the playoffs, in part because Jokic had his best and most dominant individual season. But if you just kind of look at the way that teams were allowed to guard him, and I don't mean just allowed to guard him as in like what the NBA or what the officials were allowing, but I'm talking about like just in allowing where the defenses and what they could do because of the issues that the Nuggets had around them. Like, Jokic, I think as a scorer, a lot of it's being weighed down by that 2 of 18 stretch. But outside of that, he shot about 47% from three over the course of the playoff, which is really good. But I think what happened is that when the Denver Nuggets, when they were putting out these lineups and it was just Jokic and Murray and Gordon and Porter and Brown, things were working fairly well. They were finding ways to be successful. Jokic had enough space in those lineups for the most part to be able to really find ways to take advantage of getting to the rim, getting shots off as a shooter. But really, I think the biggest difference that I noticed this playoffs is that when the Nuggets, when they were in a situation where they took Jokic off the floor with the other starters or really their other true floor spacers, everything for this team just got drastically worse. And that for me is so problematic because I think Jokic was also frustrated by the level of aggression he was seeing. But on the other end of that as well, I think Jokic was just really struggling to make decisions with the basketball consistently because of what was happening around him. And my biggest criticism for how he played is that I think he got too pass happy at times. I think he was being sped up in ways that he not saying that he should have seen it coming, because when you're playing versus elite defenses like the Clippers and the Thunder, all-time great, obviously, you're going to make mistakes. But there were things that he was doing with the basketball that I thought was just sloppy. And I thought he was just being a little too frantic at times. But Jokic did slow down as the course of the series went on, especially the OKC series, and he kept getting better. But what I was hoping for is that the Nuggets, this playoffs, that they were going to be able to still find ways to get dunks and layups off of those actions. But really in the playoffs, teams just decided that, look, we don't believe that y'all can beat us if you're not getting layups and getting dunks consistently, and if you're not getting in transition. And really the three-point execution was just so vastly underwhelming. They couldn't find enough ways to create advantages for Jokic to be able to work. But at the same time, y'all, I hear a lot of people that have been saying Jokic was bad this playoffs. Jokic didn't have a good playoff run. Look, if you ask me, especially versus the competition he was playing against, Jokic was the best player in all the series that he played in, especially, obviously, the Clippers series. I think that was pretty easy. But even the OKC series, I think a lot of people are just really hung up on, like, the overall box score stuff. And I think in terms of controlling the game, pace control, what he did, who he was playing against, the level of difficulty he was playing against, I think he didn't shoot well really in a couple of the games in the series. But for the most part, man, he really started to figure some stuff out as the series went on. And I think with the level of aggression that he was dealing with from J-Dub, Caruso, Dort, I think Cason Wallace, and then obviously iHeart and Chet and Jay Will, I mean, the level of defense they were throwing at him was just one that you can't replicate. And I think Jokic, given that he was playing versus that defense, he still played very well. And even in the series versus OKC, he was at 28.4, 13.9 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 2 steals, and a block. The turnovers were what was really like the biggest issue. He averaged 4 turnovers a game in that series. So a lot of this, I think, is just the turnovers were too much, especially early on. And if you look at the numbers 7, 6, and 8, that was the turnover difference in the first 3 games of the series. And I think that's where you started to see a lot of the issues to come about. But I just think that when people evaluate Jokic, one of the things that I found out this over the last few weeks, OKC in the entire season, in the regular season and playoffs, they had not allowed for any one player to score more than 38 points versus that team all year. And if you look at the scoring this season, Jokic has 3 of the 5 best scoring games versus OKC this year, and Jokic has the only 2 the only two 40-point games that OKC gave up the entire season, regular season, and playoff combined, and probably even going through the NBA Finals. So you're gonna have over 100 games, possibly, depending on what happens in the playoffs, because they might not lose one more game. You're gonna have almost 100 games where OKC's played where only one player has had truly elite, multiple scoring performances versus them. And I think for me, this speaks to how great he is. I also think this speaks to how high the bar is for Jokic when you're considered the best in the world. That like 28, 14, and 6 and 2, that's not going to garner you like just a widely celebrated series. And I think again, he also didn't play as well as we hoped he would, or even expected him to in some ways. But again, this is all-time great playoff player. Any other player ever averages 26.2, 12.7, and 8, and two steals over a playoff run. You know, we're having different conversations about said player, but Jokic is obviously like an anomaly, and I think he needs to be treated as such. But definitely wanted to be him to be better. But I think in the Clippers series, like the playmaking series that he had was just like phenomenal. You know, he only averaged 24 points a game, but 10.1 assists, y'all. 50-45 splits in that series as well. And then he only averaged 3 turnovers a game. So you get 10 assists, 3 turnovers a game, you get 12 rebounds, and then you get 24 points per game. And you're doing that like on above playoff true shooting, playoff efficiency. Like, again, not the best scoring run for Jokic, given what he was playing against, but just all around, I think he had a really, really great run all the way around. But I think the team just needs to continue to get better around him. And I think once you get to a certain point, I do think that this is how the level goes. This is how the conversation went with other all-time great players, that you have to exceed it. Meeting it is one thing, but you have to exceed it every year. And Jokic didn't do that, I think, as well as we had expected him to. On the other side, though, the Denver Nuggets are talking about internal development. And for me, there are some very specific things that have to happen to make the internal development story the one that really, truly makes this season better for the Nuggets. And if it doesn't happen, I think that's going to be very costly all the way around. We'll talk about that more on the other side here at Locked On Nuggets. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Now, OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Y'all, we'll be right back for segment 2, Locked On Nuggets. Y'all, we are back here for segment 2 of Locked On Nuggets. Your Denver Nuggets currently enjoying Cancun, but we, as always, will make sure to give you up-to-date Denver Nuggets content, y'all. And make sure, if you're listening to this on the Apple iTunes side, give us a 5-star review. And if you're on Spotify, give us a 5-star review. That way more and more people can listen to the great content being made here at Locked On Nuggets. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us not just a like, give us a share. Give us a follow. We're trying to get our subscriber count up to 15,000 subscribers. We believe that this could be the best Locked On NBA show on the platform, and you are what helps make that possible. So, y'all, the Denver Nuggets, y'all, they're in a situation now where the team, they're trying to find ways the front office trying to find ways to continue to improve their rotation, to improve just what exactly it is that they are on their bench unit, how their internal development is going, and how the team is going to continue to get better. But here's the thing. I'm at the place now where the things that need to truly be addressed with this roster, the things that need to get better, those are things that are going to be really contingent on how they take advantage of the small things when it comes to corner shooting, I would say POA defense, and more so discipline in POA defense. And how do they continue to find ways to develop the shooting, to develop the consistency on the defensive end, and to increase the rebounding? Like, this team, they're already a really good rebounding team, but what I've noticed in this playoffs more than anything, ending possessions is like finding gold. Because when teams get extra possessions on kickouts or long three-pointers, you create another advantage for yourself, typically where the defense is out of whack and not set. And so what happens is that you then create advantages for yourself on offensive rebounds for more open three-point shots and or layups and dunks or shots around the rim. And those are the two most premium shots in the sport. And this year, the way that teams guarded Denver, like, they absolutely did not respect the Nuggets shooters outside of a couple of players. Now, Michael Porter Jr. was hurt. And that, for me, is the end of the story there for Porter. Porter just wasn't able to get the shot up that you would normally expect him to. And so that really, I think, affected things. But look at this, y'all. Do you know in 14 games this playoffs, this is the entire Denver Nuggets rotation, three-point shooting. Jamal Murray shot 35.4% from three on 7 attempts a game. That is not Jamal Murray, not good enough, and that is a part of some of the issues they face with the spacing. That Jamal Murray, is elite of a shooter as he is, which he is an elite shooter, he wasn't able to take advantage of that enough. Now, Nikola Jokic, like I said, 5.1 three-point attempts. He shot 38% for a center. That is more than good enough. That's like good. That's very good. You know, again, he shot bad in a couple of games that took it down from where it was. But overall, he really shot over 40% for a lot in the playoffs. Christian Braun took the same amount of volume as threes as Jokic, but he shot 9% worse, almost 9% worse at the three-point shooter. And especially with the kind of looks that he gets, which are mostly wide open, getting 5 three-point attempts and shooting 29.6%, that is something that is detrimental to the floor spacing and especially how teams are guarding the Denver Nuggets. Now, Michael Porter Jr., injuries, 5 attempts, shot 34.3%. Russell Westbrook, 5 attempts, 4.8, but 5 attempts, 31.7%. So among the Denver Nuggets players who shot 4 or more threes, there were 6 of them. The only one that shot above league average from 3 in the playoff run was Nikola Jokic on 5.1 attempts at 38% and Aaron Gordon at 4.1 attempts at 37.9%. To me, that is probably one of the biggest issues with this playoff run. And I think for the Denver Nuggets, what they can't allow to happen is that this is another playoff that kind of just goes by where they don't have any real answers to address the three-point shooting. Right now, if you look at playoffs, the league average for playoff shooting is 35.5%. And if it's 35, or wait, hold on, sorry. That's the, let me see here. Dang, they don't have it updated. So the league average for three-point shots a game is 35.5%, but it looks like the league average for three-point shooting right now in the playoffs, I mean, it might be around 34%. I mean, I got to go back through some of these numbers. I think it's 34% right now. And I'm saying that, like, you had maybe 35. You had multiple players that just weren't meeting that bar. And I think that if the Denver Nuggets are really going to rely on their internal development, they have to get more consistent shooting. They have to get more consistent play finishing out of their young guys. Julian Strawther next year has to be a dynamite scorer and three-point shooter. Has to be. Next year, Peyton Watson, he can't come back into the season and drop off the face of the earth as a three-point shooter when the playoffs come. Now, he shot 36.8%, but he only shot one a game. Like, they're going to need Peyton to be able to take more threes and make more threes. Julian Strawther made 50% of his threes, but he took 1.3 three-point attempts a game in playoffs. They just couldn't use him a lot. Like, they're going to have to be able to get Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., if it's Russell Westbrook, Aaron Gordon, Julian Strawther, they have to get at least 3 of those players to be able to shoot much better outside of Murray and Jokic. They have to. And Porter, let's even take him out of there. They have to be able to shoot more consistently. And I think that for the Denver Nuggets this offseason, they have to prioritize adding another sniper to the roster. Because what's going to happen is that if they go into the playoff next year, I think that the way the NBA has adjusted to being more offensively centered is that now teams are looking at the playoffs and saying, there's a level of physicality that we have to play with on every possession to be able to force the issue, to force offenses into bad decisions. And the Nuggets were like that. The Nuggets did that in a lot of ways. The Thunder, they do that all the time. I think the Clippers did that. Like, teams are kind of looking at things now, and they're simply saying that we have to be able to dictate the terms of where and how the other team is scoring. And the way that we do that is by limiting possessions with rebounding and by forcing turnovers. But the forced turnovers, that comes with you have to be aggressive with what you're doing. So there are several things that have to be addressed and done, but I think the Nuggets have to continue to add the shooting to the roster. And now there's 2 contracts in particular that are up and coming for the Denver Nuggets, and Christian Braun and Peyton Watson, that we got to talk about, because I think these are going to be just so important for Denver to get right. But we'll talk about all that more in the third segment here at Locked On Nuggets. Y'all, this show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough: men's mental health. There's this pressure to always keep it together, to perform, provide, and never show weakness. But the truth is, real strength comes from opening up and taking care of your mental well-being. Every year, 6 million men in the U.S. experience depression, and many go undiagnosed. But talking to someone, a friend, a loved one, or a therapist can make a huge difference. Now, therapy isn't just for crisis moments, you all. It's great for learning how to set boundaries, building healthy coping tools to be the best version of yourself. One of the things that happens with men is that we are taught and forced into these states of being that we have to be quiet, be reticent to our own emotions, don't be verbal about things that are affecting you negatively and the things that weigh you down. And these kinds of coping mechanisms that are unhealthy, they put us in binds where it can make us crash over the course of a long stretch of time and not dealing with our emotions, or it puts us in places where we become mentally unwell and unsafe for ourselves and others. It is essential for men to get the help that they need to talk through what they're experiencing. And BetterHelp has 35,000 licensed professionals, and they can help make it easier for you to process through what you're feeling. And you can connect from anywhere, and you can switch therapists at any time and fit sessions into your schedule with just a click. So as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back for the final segment here at Locked On Nuggets. We're back here for the final segment of Locked On Nuggets. Shout out to you all. I'm so glad to be here with you today. And again, men, it is Men's Mental Health Month, so make sure you do get the help and get the assistance that you need. So y'all, right now, there are 2 players that have just become, by July, contract eligible extension worthy. And the main one that's on the board is Christian Braun. Now, Bobby Marks, former NBA general manager, who also works for ESPN now, Bobby Marks said this on May 19th, 2025. We talked about the Christian Braun rookie extension and why it should be a priority this summer. The challenge with Denver paying Jalen Suggs type money, $30 million per year, their finances in 2026-27. Unless a sizable contract is moved, it is hard to see Denver extending Braun at a sizable number and entering the second apron. October 21st is the deadline to extend rookies. So there's so many parts here. So he is noting it is going to be a challenge for Denver to pay Christian Braun about $30 million a year because of where their finances will be in 26. And he's also saying, unless a sizable contract is moved, it is hard to see Denver extending Braun at a sizable number and also entering the second apron. Now, what I'm saying to you is Christian Braun is a great player. And I mean great player relative to role players. Christian Braun had some truly great games this year. Truly great. Christian Braun also had a really, really great set of games in the playoffs. And I think Christian has legitimately earned his way into being one of the franchise cornerstones for the Nuggets going forward. Now, this may not be like a typical core 4 member, but whatever that next thing is underneath that, I think Christian, he deserves what he has coming his way because he developed into a true 2-way guard. He developed into a scoring threat, especially in transition and as attacking the rim. And again, he helped them to be able to find ways to work around MPJ's injuries by becoming more aggressive. But Christian is not yet a positive jump shooter. Christian is not yet treated as a real threat on the perimeter by other teams. They will allow for Christian to work out in DHO action to get downhill because they don't think he's going to drive enough to make up for the disparity of now when they go underneath the pick and roll with Jokic, they're still having 2 men on Jokic and leaving Christian out as a shooter. And Christian can make shots at times. But Christian, this playoffs, one of the reasons why the Nuggets bottomed out and one of the reasons they honestly didn't win and didn't beat OKC is because Christian wasn't yet good enough in some of the things he needs to be better at. And in particular, if you look at the OKC series, so when you get to game 4, Christian Braun, 2 of 9 from 3. They lost that game by 5 points. When you get to game 5, Christian Braun, that was another 40-15 game from Jokic, 2 of 8 from 3. Christian Braun, on the 3-point attempts he gets, these are mostly open 3-pointers. Mostly open 3-pointers. And when you have open 3-pointers, you have to be able to shoot those at a clip. In this league today, you have to be able, as an off-ball guard, to shoot above 40% on open 3-pointers. That has to be kind of where your gravity goes to. And one of the reason is that you have to be able to make up for what defenses are allowing you to do. And if you can't do that and you're not doing that consistently, it becomes really problematic for just what you're able to do and how you're able to contribute as a player overall. And I think Christian, man, he has so much more growing room as a player. Like he could become really good, like Derek White level good at some point if he continues to be devoted to his craft. Well, y'all, in the playoff, Christian Braun was 3 of 19 on left corner threes. He was 14 of 43 on above the break threes. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's just something that can't happen again. Christian has to make it his mission to come into next year and to be an actual true 3-point shooting threat, especially if you're going to be the starting 2 guard on a team that's trying to win a championship around Murray and Jokic. That's why KCP was so good in that role, especially in 2023. And that's also why they lost in 2024. They lost because of off-ball shooting in Game 7. They lost because of off-ball shooting in Game 5 and Game 4 in large parts. So they're just going to have to be able to address that. And if they're not going to get that internal development at a high enough level, then it has to be on CB to do that. And also Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson, I don't know what his contract extension looks like, but he's better. He's already better in doing more for this team than Zeke Nnaji did when Zeke Nnaji got an $8 million a year extension for 4 years. So Peyton's probably going to be anywhere between $8 to $15 million as of right now. But Peyton Watson, if he takes the offensive steps he needs to take for next year, then that will be a underpay for Peyton Watson. But both of them combined, I think Christian Braun, he's going to get, based on where he is and where the league is headed and where the budget is headed for the Denver Nuggets and for every NBA team, he's probably going to get anywhere between $25 to $30 million on his next extension. So 100 mil to 120 mil is going to be where he is for 4 years. But the question becomes, what does that mean for Porter? I mean, this is not for this episode. What does that mean for Michael Porter Jr.? Because that is the only other contract that really I think is truly movable. And then I don't think they need to moving Jamal Murray, another conversation, another show, for me that is off the table, because replacing Jamal will be damn near impossible, I think, for what he provides for the team. But for the team, for the league next year, I just want people to get a context of just where exactly player contracts are. The players that are making between $33 and $25 million a year next year. You got RJ Barrett making 25. Well, that's just, let me go to this next year for you, so give you a better look. So for next year, so you have players like Jeremy Grant making $32 million a year next year. Jordan Poole's making 31. DeJounte Murray's making 31.5. Devin Vassell's making 27. And then you're going to get Kristoff will be at about 30 mil next year. John Collins, his last year of his deal is 26.5 for next year. Miles Bridges, 25. And then you get Tyler Hero at 31. Jonathan Isaac has about 15. Like, this is just going to be an interesting story. Emmanuel Quickly, $32 million a year. Julius Randle's at 31. CJ McCollum's at 30.6. Anthony Simons at 27. So this is the range in which he's at. Right now, Derek White, I think, who has a comparable deal. Derek White has 28, 30.3, 32.5, and then a player option for 34. And that's about where CB's going to be. That's about where he's going to be. But the question becomes, is how do they make that contract work? CB has to level up, especially as a shooter. That will make a lot of a difference with the dribbling, the playmaking and transition, the finishing and transition, the half-court finishing, and the defense. If you add the shooting on top of that, then I think that makes that deal worthwhile. Because that's kind of what Derek White is, but he's even better than CB at this point. But I think for Peyton, I mean, right now, the way that I'm looking at it for Peyton, like Rashad Holmes is getting $13 million a year. Mitchell Robinson getting $12 million a year. Like Isaiah Joe's getting $12 million a year. Moses Moody got a deal for $11.5 million a year. Jared Vanderbilt, $11.5. I mean, that's about where I think Peyton Watson deserves right now. Isaac Okoro, $11 million a year. So he's going to be in that range. So the Nuggets are about to get more expensive, but they still need significant development from Christian, more so from Peyton, but from Christian, Peyton, and Julian Strawther. So all the way around, the internal development piece only works if all the players that you're projecting to take leaps are taking leaps. It's that simple. But overall, we got more stuff to get into this summer. Got a lot of content, y'all. What do you think? Do you think that Jokic's playoffs is being underrated? Do you think that the Denver Nuggets and the young player development is a realistic goal? How much, based on what I laid out in the contracts that you did here, do you think Christian Braun and Peyton Watson should be paid this upcoming offseason? Or should the Nuggets wait until after next year, after year 4, when they're restricted free agents, to re-sign them? Let me know what y'all think. This is Swiper. This is Locked On Nuggets. Y'all know what time it is. See you on the other side.